Heavy metal rock.
Global mind.
Turn and breathe the last breath.
I'm Robert Cavuto, and today on My Global Mind, I'm pleased to be speaking with Jon Courtney of Pure Reason Revolution for their new LP, Coming to Consciousness, that comes out September 6th. Jon, welcome, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the album, and what I found fascinating was a lot of the songs were inspired by some loss and some scary tragedies potentially that you were up against. Can you share some of that?
Yeah, if I rewind back to kind of like the autumn time, the fall of 2022, yeah, we had our dog put down.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he was 17 years old. You know, it was something we'd thought about for a while as his health got worse. And then, yeah, we finally had him put down, and I really felt that I was emotionally or just prepared for this. And then, you know, turns out I really wasn't. And the emotional impact was much bigger than I'd expected. You know, this part of the family, this thing that's been there for 17 years, apart from when you go on holiday, every day you're with this animal. And yeah, it hit me really hard. And then maybe sort of this, let's say 8 to 12 weeks after this, you know, after this grieving. And during this time, sort of mortality and death had been quite sharp in focus. And these sort of feelings of betrayal and deception, you know, taking him to the vet and this kind of thing. Just as I was starting to feel a little better about this, I had this possible exposure with asbestos.
Wow.
And it really flipped me over the edge, because this had been my life's biggest fear, had been to come across this material.
Wow.
And so then after this, again, this mortality and death came into super sharp focus. I thought I was going to die very soon. I thought, you know, perhaps my family had been exposed too, and it was all my fault. And then, you know, there was this, I played out this whole catastrophe, this tragedy, and it was completely, I lost the plot basically. And I was soon at doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists. I was diagnosed with OCD. And then I began therapy and things like this. And, you know, I saw doctors and they said, look, if this were asbestos, because it was a short exposure, it's very unlikely it would have a long-term effect.
Good.
You know, we measure this in like months of exposure, not in a few days or something like this. So then I slowly started to feel better, but yeah, it wasn't a great period, that's for sure.
How did you get exposed to asbestos? Was it in like the walls of an apartment or a house?
Yeah, I was doing some renovation, like some renovation work. And like I said, I never had this 100% confirmed, and it was kind of irrelevant by then because it would have cost to get it all tested and all this kind of thing. So, and if it was asbestos or not, that's not so important. But the impact that it had at that time of me already being fragile with this death in sharp focus, and then you add to this my worst fear, my life's worst fear, because of this OCD that had been bubbling under the surface. This just pounded me into complete freak out.
Wow. Fascinating.
And then after that, I really had a dry patch of songwriting. I didn't have anything to write, and I spent my time trying to sort of practice guitar, trying to improve my piano theory. Mm-hmm. And then I had a meeting with my friend Craig, who was the vocalist in Archive. And we met at a cafe in Berlin, and I told him about this terrible few months. And he said, Jon, he's like, you need to get this down in lyrics. He said, what you just explained to me He's like, this is an album. He's like, this part, this is this song, this, and this. And before that moment, I hadn't even thought about writing any of this down. But then after this meeting, then I started getting some lyrics down. And then I soon thought, why am I improving my guitar playing, my keyboard play? I'm good as I am. Let's just, I don't, let's be in the present. Let's get this down. Like, I'll be waiting forever to become Joe Satriani. Like, let's just record some songs. And it just came out really quickly from that moment.
No, that's great. I agree with you. I think even my guitar playing, it's as good as it's ever going to get. I'm never going to be Yngwie Malmsteen. I've accepted it and I've moved on. No, that's a fascinating story. And it had to be cathartic to get it out. Like, did you feel better when it was done? It was recorded. At what phase did you feel so much better that it was out?
I mean, it was really from this meeting with Craig when he sort of was the catalyst to say,
yeah,
it's down. And then when I started getting it down, and for me, the music feeds the lyrics. So I constantly, I'll come up with some guitar bits, and then that inspires me for lyrics, and then vice versa. They really feed each other.
Yeah.
But I'm very fortunate that, I'm a musician with a great supportive label, and I was able to get this out. I was able to heal and have this cathartic process by getting all this stuff into music and lyrics. So it was really like, though I did have conventional therapy, I had this music therapy as well, which was great healer in this whole process.
I agree. I think music is one of the best healers. It always makes me feel better some way, shape, or form. What I found fascinating with the songs was I was listening to them before I read the lyrics or knew the story or even read the lyrics. And I really thought they were lofty, beautiful songs. The music itself. And then I was reading and at the lyrics, I was like, wow, these are very dark songs. Is it easier for you to write a darker song than it is more of a poppy or an upbeat song?
I'm not sure. I think sometimes when I'm explaining what happened, I think, oh God, this sounds like a really depressing album. But I think that, like I said, I learned a lot about myself through this time. And I can now look back on this whole experience as a positive.
Yeah.
A year ago I couldn't, but now I can. There was great growth. And I think that while there are some like maybe not so cheerful parts, there is hope in it, and there is I hope there is an optimism. Like you said, you got an optimism from it. It didn't sound like this down album.
Right.
So yeah, I guess sometimes the lyrics can be a bit dark, but I like this juxtaposition with pretty melody, with catchy phrases. That's something I've always liked to have this balance of, okay.
Yeah.
The topic or the theme might be a bit dark, but then the music juxtaposes that by being pretty and euphoric and all these things.
Yeah, I was sitting on the beach listening to it, preparing for the interview, and I was like, oh, this is pretty chill. And then I got deeper and I was like, wow, this opens up a whole nother line of questioning. So yeah, I totally get it. When you're in that state and you're feeling those emotions, do you think you could hear your voice, the state of mind that's going through your head and everything, and your voice, the emotion you're bringing out more?
Yeah, and I hope that we managed to bring that onto the record. I hope that the emotion comes through. Years ago, for example, with vocals, we used to sort of track the lead vocal, whereas nowadays I try and leave that very much so it's just one track of vocal, so you can hear as much voice without too many effects. Sure, we go into the harmonies where you get this big wall of vocals, but again, it's about this light and shade. Like some parts can be stripped back where you get the full emotion, and then other parts it's let's go a bit Queen on this and give it the full harmonies where you get a bit less character on the vocal, but it gives a huge choral effect. And a different type of impact. But yeah, I hope that the emotion of this whole experience is captured on the record.
Yeah, I think it sounds great. And you bring me to a good question I had was Chloe Alper stepped away from the band, and now you have a newcomer, Annicke Shireen. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, I think if you're doing it the Dutch, it's like Annick, but she says just call me Annika, so we call
Annika.
her.
That's easy.
Yeah,
But her voice marries so well with yours and lifts the song up and lifts the music up and really takes it to another level. The harmonies and the double vocals, tremendous work. So kudos to her on that. She was tremendous.
yeah. No, we had this. Chloe and I spoke around the time of me starting initial demos, and we had a chat, and she said, "Look, I'm so busy with my day job, plus I'm playing in this other band, James, and we're doing really big shows in the UK. I don't have any time." She said, "I can sing on the record, but I don't have time to do live shows." And for me, this was just going to make it too confusing again. We had this with Above Cirrus, and I thought to do this again, the fans, or it's just too confusing. And Annika is available to do shows. She's available to sing on the record. So at the end of the conversation I had with Chloe was, look, she said, "Look, I'll sit this one out." It totally made sense for Annika to sing on the record, to do the live shows. But the door's always open with Chloe. Who knows what happens in the future? Maybe one day we'll have Chloe and Annika on stage. I don't know. But Annika, like you said, she has a great voice. She's great in the studio. She's great live. We get on well. So yeah, it's fantastic working with Annika.
Yeah, that's a nice sentiment too. Keeping the door open, not burning any bridges. I think that's so important. You hear so many stories of everybody's mad at each other, and I think it's just open arms, and I think that's tremendous. So kudos to you for doing that. Does Annika play bass too?
She doesn't. She does. She plays a little bit of bass, but in the live setup, she's doing some keyboards and vocals.
Okay, got it. And tell me a little bit about the songwriting process. Has it changed since the formation of the band? You put this band together, from what I understand, when you were in college.
Hold on a second. It froze a little bit then.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear it?
Yeah, I got you. I think sometimes I'll write. Sometimes I just do tracks by myself. So I just do the whole thing. I write it, I do the lyrics, I produce it. And then Greg and I will work on the harmonies. And then what we've done mainly on the last couple of albums where we've co-written stuff is it's best to not come in with too many preconceived ideas. We just come in zero kind of thing. We come in from zero, maybe with a couple of references. And then we just start on something. Maybe it's Greg at his piano and me on the guitar. And then we just build it a little bit. We go, okay, this works as a verse. Maybe this is a nice chorus thing. And then, and then we'll just build it into a song. So I think three songs Greg and I wrote together on this, and then the others I was doing in Berlin. So yeah, I think that's the way Greg and I like it, is to just start from zero and build something together.
Yeah, everybody's different. I hear so many stories. They don't want to spend money in the studio writing. They don't have the money, so they work it all out in demos, and then they come to practice them, and then come together in the studio to play. So yeah, it's interesting of your process. I find that interesting. As I told you before, the songs are so layered, they're so lush, they're so flourished with music, and you always seem to seek the ultimate expression in a song. Do you know what drives that artistic work ethic?
I mentioned the OCD thing from before, and while this has been in the past like a huge detriment sometimes when you're sort of ruminating about something, really focusing in on the details of something that really isn't important. With music, it can be a benefit for me. I think it has been a benefit because I can go in with dedication and detail that most people wouldn't fucking bother. They just go like, they just wouldn't do that. So I push it so far, and I have to get it so precise for how I've imagined it, that I'd rather junk something than it not be not conceived how I want it to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can look at this OCD as a benefit when it comes to these detail things. I see the fine print of the universe. I even mentioned that in a track, you know, I see the fine print in things. And, yeah, so I'm not sure if that answered the question.
No, it did. It did. I was going to ask you about the OCD. How does that, I would imagine it always has to, it never is perfect. It's never right. You're never satisfied with it with OCD, and you
No.
can't let it go. So I wasn't sure how that impacted the scenario.
Yeah, you're right. It's difficult to let it go. And I think that's why it's quite nice. We worked with Bruce Sword on this record. And I like to, you know, I'm so involved in the writing, I'm so involved in the production that for me, it's really nice to hand it over to someone at the end of that. And Bruce was perfect because, you know, he said, mixing this is so natural for me because, you know, he's in this genre. He knows this type of songwriting. And so he even did some guest guitars on stuff. And the stuff he came up with was like straight away fitted. It was a really good relationship we had. And I'm sure we're going to do it again.
That's awesome.
But I think we worked with Paul Northfield years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he once said to me, John, you're never finished, but you just stop. And I always come back to that one. And it's like, yeah, you're never finished, but you just stop at some point. You conk out. You've given it so much energy, so much time that you just have to stop.
Yeah. I get that feeling too. Like there's some point where in my mind, there's no such thing as perfection. And you have to be happy with what you have. You have to be able to live with what you have and realize, like you said, you're not Joe Satriani, I'm not Yngwie Malmsteen, and we're never going to get a solo that's going to be like that on our music. So I'm totally on board with what you say, and I respect that.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by the album artwork. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, we had, let me think. So we've had Jill Doherty do the last 3 albums. And Jill's artwork has a sort of special knack for coming into my life at these key moments. So I think it was the end of 2022, just after this, you know, having our dog put down and this difficult time. Then I saw this piece of art by Jill. And I just thought, you know, this fits with the material so well.
Right.
I straight away sent her a message and just said, Jill, I know already that I would like this to be the artwork. Can we use this piece for the album?
Mm-hmm.
So it's always super easy with the artwork because something from Jill's always falls into my life just at the right point. And the title of it is As We Disappear, which ended up being the title for the last track. This track was initially called Rosengarten, which is where my dog's ashes were scattered in Berlin. But I just really like this As We Disappear sentiment. It was this, your body lays there till it's all cremated. And this is, you know, this totally fits with the song.
Yeah, I agree.
As we disappear into the earth. So yeah, and it was nice to tie in with the artwork in the last track.
And that location is a mouthful to say, let alone to sing. That'd be a tough one to bring into the scenario, into the song. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It was a fascinating and insightful interview, and I wish you the best with the album. So thank you again.
Well, pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show. And
we'll get this posted. It's going to be posted in about 2 weeks. I know my editor is on vacation, but we'll get this out as soon as he's back. Okay.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And thank you, Robert.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Heavy metal rock. Global mind.